It's great to be here back in God's country. I mean, the book tour takes me all over the country, and it's so nice to be right here.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that right at the start, because before you went to Harvard, before you were at Oxford, before you won Pulitzers, before you won that Olympic diving medal, which I assume at some point you probably did, before all of that, there was what I read as a sheep and cherry farm in Yamhill, Oregon. What did you learn there that you are carrying along in your fancy life you have now?
Well, I think I'm probably the only person in the New York Times who knows how to arc weld or inoculate a lamb. Those are not hugely useful skills in Manhattan, though.
Do you feel like your Oregon roots have informed how you have reported on stories and related to people?
You know, to some extent they have. I mean, Yamhill County is in many ways going through some real economic difficulties, and there were a lot of blue-collar jobs a generation ago in logging, in factories. Those jobs have gone away, and today there's a real problem with lack of opportunity, with economic inequality, and a lot of my friends from high school are struggling. And I think that those issues kind of come alive to me because I think of those people, and that's maybe one reason why I tend to write about issues of inequality and social justice.
This show is about unknowns, and one of the things that you've done so expertly in your career is you've really brought some unknowns to a Western readership, about how life is lived in sub-Saharan Africa and in China and in so many other places. And often, like you said, you're writing about people who are really the have-nots in this sort of global environment. Does it ever bum you out? Are you ever going to write a column about a plucky cat that found its way back to its owners?
You know, it's sort of funny because people
always... It was
always...
probably a cat that didn't have access to clean drinking water, right?
Absolutely.
The Kristof spin.
You know, people always sort of assume that I must be this incredibly morose character because here I am covering all these terrible things. And the truth is that when you go and, that side by side with the worst of humanity, you see the very best. And I remember one trip to Eastern Congo, the most lethal conflict since World War II, and I met a warlord there who was slaughtering people. But the person who left the deepest impression on me was this incredible Polish nun who was single-handedly feeding orphans, educating kids, staving off the warlord. And I managed to come back from Eastern Congo, really my faith in humanity reaffirmed. And so in a strange way, we're not tested in this country. In other countries, people are. And so it is possible to cover the worst of the world and actually emerge kind of optimistic about humanity.
How do you talk to a warlord and not get, warlorded?
Well,
I mean, are you nervous the whole time you're talking to a warlord? Because I feel like I would be.
It's this very awkward dance because you want to preserve your credibility as a journalist and you want to ask tough questions. On the other hand, you want to survive. And so... I try not to pull punches, but the one compromise I make is that I often will wait till I'm out of the warlord's area of control before my column appears.
That is a good way to do things, I think. Okay, so your new book is called A Path Appears, and it's described as a roadmap to global citizenry. I'm wondering, is that even possible? I mean, we humans, we are selfishly motivated. Could it ever be that we would actually try to be, enough of us would try to be good global citizens that this thing would work? Oh,
absolutely. I mean, I really do think that we are, in fact, in many ways, altruistically motivated, that we are social creatures, and we do yearn for some kind of, we want to have an impact on the world. And the truth is that now there are a lot of ways in which we can do that, really simple ways. And so one of the things we try to do in the book is talk about very ordinary little things. One of the things my kids once gave me for Father's Day, best present ever, they gave me a sponsorship of this giant Gambian pouched rat. And
another one?
Yeah.
Father's Day again.
And you don't wear it as a tie, but what you do is it has an incredible sense of smell, and it can detect landmines, and so in 2 hours it can clear an area of mines as much as humans can cover in 2 days. And I had never had a giant Gambian pouched rat before, and the idea that it was out there clearing landmines in Mozambique and Angola, boy, that was a great Father's Day present.
We are talking to Nicholas Kristof, a New York Times columnist here on Livewire Radio. He's also got a new book out, as we mentioned, called A Path Appears, which he's co-written with his wife, fellow Pulitzer Prize winner. I guess you guys were the first husband and wife Pulitzer Prize winners.
Yep.
Do you guys each get a Pulitzer, and is one slightly higher on the mantle than the other one? Somebody slipped like a matchbook under one of them?
You know, we each get a certificate, but it's kind of embarrassing to actually put them anywhere. So I think they're in the, you know, I'm not even sure actually where the certificates are.
That always happens with
Don't
my
tell
Pulitzers.
Columbia University that, but yeah.
One of the other things that jumped out at me about the book was an issue that is so preventable. It's $250 to fix it, and it's something that in America wouldn't even create very much trouble for a person, and it's clubfoot. And yet this is life-destroying for people in other areas. Can you kind of explain?
Sure. You know, so often in traveling in the developing world, you see people begging in the streets, unable to walk, and that's because they have clubfoot. And in this country, about one in 1,000 people worldwide are born with clubfoot. In this country, you don't see them because they're corrected at birth. And in fact, as we were writing the book, I found that my mom, who is right down here, that my mom had been born with clubfoot, but I never knew that because she's very vigorous. And so we followed a American in California named Shoshana Klein, who sent a $250 contribution to an organization that deals with clubfoot. And we followed that money to a hospital in Niger, where that money was used for a little girl named Rashida. And it gave her life back. Here you had this girl who otherwise was destined to get no education, to never marry, to have no life other than being a beggar in the street. And that $250 contribution, it completely transformed her life and is going to empower her so that she can contribute to society in ways that are, again, this isn't depressing. This is truly uplifting and inspiring.
Tell me about Bead for Life, because that's a pretty genius idea, also mentioned in the book.
Yeah, it's sort of fascinating, and I think it maybe reflects sort of churches for a secular age. There's this, as fewer Americans are going to church, I think sometimes people try to recreate social institutions in which they have some kind of purpose. So Bead for Life is started by a couple of women who were in Uganda and noticed these women making these little beads, jewelry out of old discarded paper. And it was really cool jewelry. And so they began to have parties, bead parties, where they would sell the jewelry made out of trash by these Ugandan women and raise money for them. And so it's a real business. And they train these women. And meanwhile, Americans get to wear this great jewelry.
So when you see all of this stuff going on and these microloans that are made, and again, very small contributions from the West that can make a huge difference in the lives of people. And by the way, this book is not confined to the West. You also write about your neighbors, your kids' friends growing up who are, as one person put it in your book, they were a teacher in Nepal, and they said teaching in rural Nepal is a piece of cake compared to teaching in some impoverished parts of this country. But in either case, why is it that we can't seem to connect up with this idea that something like $250 can change someone's life forever? Why are we not more generous?
I think that there is something of an empathy gap. I don't know any other way of describing it. And especially when one does not see these people in need, whether they are half a world away or whether they are on the wrong side of the tracks in one's own city, then it's very easy to tune them out and to kind of, in some cases, blame them for poverty, to see poverty as a moral failing. And that is obviously extraordinarily unfair, and it's self-defeating. And one of the things that just drives me up the wall is to hear people complain about the poor being personally irresponsible. And sure, there is an element of irresponsibility sometimes, but there's also an area of real personal irresponsibility on the part of everybody else when we know tools that will make a difference, that will support those people, will support the country, reduce the gap of inequality, which is a huge burden on this country, and that we don't do anything about it. So I think, we should be doing a little more looking in the mirror as well.
Do you sleep at night? Seriously, you spend a large amount of your time looking carefully at these inequalities and understanding that small shifts could make a big difference, and yet that isn't always the case. I mean, does this weigh on you personally?
It is incredibly frustrating. One of the things we describe in the book is an intervention for very small children. It was so much more effective to help a 6-month-old than a 16-year-old. And the most robust intervention, which would save the U.S. $6 for every dollar spent, it only reaches 2 to 3% of the kids in need. And it is incredibly frustrating to, at bedtime when you're trying to sleep, and you think about, all these incredible missed opportunities. But it also is inspiring to see some of these people struggling to make a difference, whether it is in our own country or half a world away, and genuinely seeing improvement. One of the things when I first began to travel in Africa that was so depressing was blindness. And there's a $40 surgery that corrects trachoma. And we saw this woman who'd been blind for years, unable to care for her children. Some of them have died. And then she got this $40 surgery, and the bandages come off, and somebody asks her, do you want us to help you away? And she says, "Get out of my way. I can see now." And,
Wow, she turned into a total jerk. 5 seconds. I didn't really mean that, Nicholas Kristof, Pulitzer Prize winner. Nicholas, you have been in some pretty extreme environments in your career as a journalist. You've even been called the Indiana Jones of investigative journalism. And it seems to us, in reading your work and admiring you, that nothing seems to scare you. But we wanted to put that to the test. So we're going to give you some daunting scenarios, and you have to tell us if you're scared or if you're not scared. Okay, and to keep you honest, we have our own Andrew Harris here. Andrew, how much medical training do you have in the Are People Scared department?
Well, my grandmother was an anesthesiologist, and I'm wearing a necktie.
Okay.
So
that is, and that's good enough for me. Andrew Harris is going to monitor your level of scaredness, Nicholas Kristof, and we're going to have you play a game called What in the Heck Scares Nicholas Kristof?
What in the heck scares Nicholas Kristof? Maybe it's a gun or a snake.
They have to be somewhere later, so they didn't want to do a long version of the intro music. We're all kind of in a rush. All right, here we go. What the heck scares Nicholas Kristof? I want your honest answer. Andrew,
Okay.
how are you planning on monitoring this? You're going to make physical contact?
I'm going to be taking his pulse, and I can see his level
Biometrics.
of perspiration.
Do you know even where you put your hand to measure someone's pulse?
Yeah, you just go.
Yeah, shoulder. That's good. That's right. Right on their shoulder pad of their suit. That's how doctors do it. That's how your grandmother did it as an anesthesiologist. All right, here we go. Nicholas Kristof, what the heck scares you? You are covering a university protest. You're facing campus police in riot gear. They start tasering protesters, and you have to run 40 yards to get to your car. Scared or not scared?
Not scared.
Andrew?
Just
telling
check
the
your
truth?
pulse right here. He's actually scared.
Okay.
I mean, I've been tased before. You can't run from a taser.
Yeah.
They
Maybe he
remove-
doesn't know enough to be scared because he hasn't been tased before.
Possibly.
Never been tased.
There you go.
Just
Willful
shot at.
ignorance on your part. Okay. Question number 2. Scared or not scared, Nicholas Kristof? You open up the milk carton, and it seems like it might have gone bad. But you're kind of stuffed up, so you're not totally sure. And you've already poured your cereal into the bowl, so there's no backing out now. Scared or not scared?
Terrified.
I'm not reading fright here. I mean, if this was toothpaste where you clearly cannot put it back, then that would be one thing. But
Yeah.
cereal can be put back into the box. So
Wow.
no.
You have to stop lying to us, Nicholas, because you're not going to get anything past Andrew Harris.
These are objective medical facts, Luke.
All right, here we go. Nicholas Kristof, what the heck scares you? You walk into a dark, abandoned mental institution with shuttered windows and graffiti that warns, "The devil will see you now." As you're walking down the hall, the moon shines through the broken window just enough for you to see an old, rusty gurney slowly making its way towards you with an old woman on it, ripping at her straitjacket, pointing at you and whispering, "Your soul already lives here." Scared or not scared?
Totally scared.
Have you ever reported on that sort of a thing?
I've never had that interview, no.
It's a tough one to book. Andrew?
Yeah, he's scared.
Okay. All right. And last but not least, Nicholas Kristof, what the heck scares you? Your wife, fellow Pulitzer Prize winner, says to you, "We really need to talk."
Cheryl is tough. So, no, Cheryl intimidates me sometimes.
He says scared. Andrew Harris?
It's off the charts, Luke.
Yeah, that's crazy. That is how you play What the Heck Scares Nicholas Kristof.
What in the world scares Nicholas Kristof? Maybe it's some milk or his wife.